Welcome back to Hope at Dawn. It's Friday edition, and my name is George Gishuru. Promised you that when we are back, we'll be looking at the papers, what's being reported. And yes, that is exactly what we'll be doing now. I do have the Standard, and they are reporting the headline there. Freedom for Rotich exposes state agencies. Now, end of a circus, they say, after a 4-year trial that saw 49 witnesses lined up to testify, with the prosecution having no questions for the majority of them. Former Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich and 8 others are cleared in the 65 billion shillings Kimwarer and Aurora Dams scandal. Now, the question they are asking is who dropped the ball? And the story is captured on pages, or rather page 2. Now, there is a quote there attributed to the trial magistrate Eunice Nyoto, and she says, all the accused persons in this case are hereby acquitted under Section 210 due to lack of evidence as a result of the reckless dereliction of duty by the prosecution. Some harsh words there towards the prosecution by the trial magistrate Eunice Nyoto. So 2019, this is the year when former CS Henry Rotich and others were charged over the Aurora and Kimwarer Dams scandal. 49 is the number of witnesses who testified in the case. Magistrate found it odd that only 8 were cross-examined by the prosecution. Can you imagine? 49 witnesses were lined up to testify, but only of the 49, only 8 were cross-examined by the prosecution. And that's very, very interesting. And also, to some extent, a sad story you can read on page 2. Sad story in as far as the fight against the graft in the country is concerned. Then I see still front page, Ruto is after me, over 15 billion shillings whistleblowing. Controller of Budget Margaret Nyakango, in a case in the High Court, takes on President William Ruto, claiming that his government wanted her out of office, purportedly for whistleblowing on the release of 15 billion shillings from public coffers. Is pages 6 and 7. 6 billion shillings is the amount that the government bought Telkom Kenya shares for in a controversial deal with Helios. Court has stopped EACC from charging Dr. Nyakango over the sale, and you can read that story pages 6 and 7. I know this story will also ring a bell. Ivy killer gets 40 years in jail. Court declines to impose death sentence on Kenothia for brutal murder of Moi University student in April of 2019. That is a story on page 3 inside the Standard. Justice Stephen Gethenji said the prosecution had proved its case beyond reasonable doubt. The judge refused to prescribe a death sentence as requested by the victims' family, and there are pictures there. Nancy Kenothia and the son, Naftali Kenothia, at the High Court in Eldoret on March 3rd, and then right was the lady who was killed, Ivy Wangeshi. Read that story on page 3. And then I see also slight reprieve as cost of petrol down by 5 shillings. That is on page 4. High taxes, debt to hit economy. That is in the business section on page 39 inside the Standard. They are talking about debts. According to reports, high taxes and debt to hit Kenya's economic growth. Deloitte analysis projects economy to grow by 5.2% in 2024, which is the slowest in East Africa. Growth will be driven by improved agricultural production, services, and tourism sectors. Read that. I also see on the same page, ex-Naivas boss launches new retail stores. This is former Naivas Supermarkets Chief Commercial Officer Willy Kimani launching a new retail concept of hard discounted stores targeting the mass market. Read that also on page 39. Then I see This is Kenya's population bulging, but little land for farming, according to a report. The country's population among the fastest growing in Africa, alongside Madagascar, Tanzania, Malawi, and Nigeria. Now, the report shows deforestation, where smallholder agriculture is responsible for forest loss in the continent. So Kenya has 4.5 million hectares suitable for crop production, but has a high population, which is encroaching on key water catchment areas. That's according to a new survey. Read that story on page 14. Lake Turkana fish could be extinct. IUCN study shows the large-toothed Lake Turkana robber, a fish species only found in Lake Turkana in Kenya, is among those threatened with extinction in the world. According to a new study by International Union for Conservation of Nature, the fish known scientifically as Brissanas ferox has moved from least concern to vulnerable on the IUCN red list. Read that on page 14. Back page, this is the sports page, and this is a picture of Pep Guardiola saying, "Relax. We are in perfect control." So Man City and Arsenal are England's two teams in the Champions League knockout stages. Man United, Prince and Man United fans look elsewhere because Man United finished last in Group A after 4 defeats from their 6 group matches. Can you imagine? 6 matches, 4 defeats. Sad one there. But the Champions League last 16 draw will be taking place on Monday next week, with only 2 English clubs waiting to discover their fate. Holders Man City and Arsenal, they won their groups to seal their passage into the knockout stages, while Newcastle United and Celtic dropped out of Europe entirely. Back page, I also see Osimhen's rise from hawking in Lagos to Africa's football star. And I don't know how, Eunice, you will help us to get Victor Osimhen on set, because his is a story of a Tuesday. That is one day at a time. Osimhen's rise from hawking in Lagos to Africa's football star. And the Napoli striker grew up on the dusty streets of Olosuson in Lagos. He is the first Nigerian man to become African Footballer of the Year since Nwankwo Kanu way back in 1999. And a quote here, he says, "As a young boy who had to hawk in traffic almost every day in order to survive the numerous challenges my family and I were facing, becoming a treasure in Africa and world football was a wild dream." That is Victor Osimhen, the 2023 African Footballer of the Year. Read that interesting and also inspiring story on page 51. Page 50, you will get Kamworor still unsure of his return to action. The former half-marathon record holder is still managing injury that ruled him out of New York race. He was looking to bag a 3rd title during the 2023 New York City Marathon last month. Read that story and other sports stories on pages 48, 49, 50, 51, and 52 inside the Standard. The Nation: Treasury puts caps on office lunch and tea. That is the headline. Officials advised to use public transport and also hold meetings in their boardrooms. So new expenditure measures, transport provision for one on official duty, capped at 5,000 shillings from the current 10,000 shillings. Officers now encouraged to use safe online taxis and public transport. Use of local flights limited to CS, PS, PAS, DGs, directors, heads of department. Meetings and task force activities to be held in boardrooms. Approvals for trainings suspended. Lunches, teas, and snacks rationalized. Interests cut by 50%. Fuel card limits to be set on available budgets. So the National Treasury announcing a new round of austerity measures for ministries, departments, and agencies, chopping allowances for official travel by half, and also limiting the category of officers allowed to use planes on domestic routes. It also banned non-essential lunch, tea, and water for civil servants, and slashed interests by 50%. That is a story you can read on page 4. But I hope this is not just another PR gimmick. gimmick, and then it is discarded even before rollout, because some of these monies can indeed go a long way in as far as saving, because we are not in a good place economically speaking. So in terms of our expenditure as well, we need to be very cautious, and I hope that this can be followed. I still wonder why we have these meetings and activities, other meetings and activities in hotels or outside Nairobi, whereas you have boardrooms, so why not utilize that boardroom? Anyway, food for thought there. All right. How DPP let Rotich 8 others off the hook in Dam's case. The prosecution literally abandoned the case, and the trial magistrate had no kind words for them. She termed the conduct of the Director of Public Prosecution's office as a dereliction of public duty. Happened in not 1, 2, 3 state witnesses, but 41 of them who had been bonded to testify in the trial of former Finance Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich and 8 others. And of course, this is a case, should be a case study of how not to win a case, corruption-related cases for that. All right. Man who hacked university girl to death, jailed for 40 years. That also has been covered extensively in the dailies this morning. Fuel prices dropped by the biggest margin since October of 2021. That is on page 5. Back to the drawing board as HIV vaccine trial stopped. The largest trial in Africa for a combination of 2 vaccines to prevent HIV infection has been terminated due to poor results. That is a story you can get on page 10. The back page of The Nation, World Bank says low-wage jobs derailing poverty fight. They're saying number of jobs created in informal sector is more than 5 times that in formal sector. So the increase of low-wage informal sector jobs has derailed Kenya's progress on poverty eradication, according to a new report by the World Bank. The rate of poverty reduction has slowed down since 2019, despite the transformation of the economy away from the traditional and mainstay agriculture sector. MPs urge caution on having zero-fault audit reports as a measure of performance. That also is on the back page of the Daily Nation. I see Man City go for full house of trophies in Saudi Arabia. Pep Guardiola is hoping to complete his trophy haul as Man City manager at the Club World Cup in Saudi Arabia as the Gulf Kingdom shows off its wares in hosting a major international football tournament for the very first time. Sports bringing communities together at Kakuma refugee camp, also on page 43. No let-up as Battle of Man and Machine heads to Amboseli. 58 crews are still in contention for the title, led by Italian duo of Amos and Sechi in a Porsche 911 car. That is on page 42. Unbeaten KPA, they have reached the quarterfinals in Egypt. They beat the University of Douala 74-59 to reach knockout phase with much to spare. So they are indeed representing Kenya well. That is in the ongoing Africa Women Basketball League, and we are wishing them the very best. I also see no guilt for Jones in taking Japan job, also is on page 40 inside the Daily Nation. In terms of Business Daily, an interesting story here. Mwai Kibaki, they are saying Mwai Kibaki was Kenya's best chief executive. That is according to the World Bank. GDP per capita grew the fastest in the Kibaki era. Poverty rate declined from 46.7% to 36.1% in 10 years. So a new World Bank report has pointed to why the late President Mwai Kibaki was Kenya's best chief executive, yet report after his economic policies did the most to cut poverty rates, especially among rural households in the period between 2005 and 2015. Now, the report, which was unveiled yesterday, noted that the massive reduction in poverty during this period also coincided with a period when gross domestic product per capita grew faster, with private consumption playing a bigger role. So the pace of reduction in the poverty rate, the lender noted, has since slowed down, with the share of Kenyans falling below the poverty rate, increasing in 2022 due to the negative effects, of course, of COVID-19 pandemic. The poverty rate is the ratio of the number of people whose income falls below the poverty line, and they are saying here the period during that period 2005-2015, that decade, poverty reduced by from 46.7% to 36.1%, and then reduced number of poor from 16.5 to 16.4. All right, I also see here EPRA cuts fuel prices by biggest margin in 2 years. So fuel prices will from today drop by the biggest margin in over 2 years of up to 5 shillings per litre, as consumers start enjoying relief from a drop in global prices of crude. A litre of super petrol will from today retail at 212 shillings and 36 cents in Nairobi, from 217. That of diesel will go for 201 shillings and 47 cents, from 203 shillings and 47 cents in the new monthly cycle that ends on the 14th of January next year. All right, Jumia to close down food delivery. Yes. E-commerce platform Jumia has announced plans to shut down its food delivery business in all the 7 African markets that it is operating, including in Kenya, by the end of this month. They are citing unfavorable market conditions. Peter Njonjo steps down as Twiga CEO after funding round, and then Treasury caps travel, parks, air travel, launch in new austerity. And you can read all that in the Business Daily this morning. Lots and lots of news being covered, so you can grab your favorite copy of your daily and get to abreast yourself with what's happening both within and also outside the country. And also right here at Hope Media, we have you covered round the clock in terms of news coverage. You remember you can tune in to Hope FM from 7 a.m. or through to 7 p.m. and you can catch News Watch round the clock, and also of course on Hope TV we have Dira at 7 p.m. and Newswatch at 9 p.m. So you are updated in as far as what's happening is concerned. We take a short break, and this is to pave way for the video of the day. And the video of the day this morning, it's courtesy of the amazing, talented Edith Wairimu, and the title of the song, Nitasimama. Stick around.